Good afternoon. Okay, a couple of items for you today. Not much going on around here, obviously. You've all seen the president's statement we issued this morning on the House passing his Build Back Better agenda for the middle class, which came just 3 weeks after the bipartisan infrastructure deal also passed. And since this came through today, I wanted to just highlight and note for the American people a couple of the big benefits that are in this package that we're looking forward to moving through the Senate. Today, families pay an average of $8,600 per year on pre-K. Under the president's plan, most of them will pay $0. The average family pays 13% of their income on child care under the president's plan. No middle-income family will pay more than 7% of their income. Two parents with one toddler earning $100,000 per year will save more than $5,000 per year. Under the president's plan, a family of four earning $80,000 per year will save nearly $3,000 per year, or $246 per month, on health insurance premiums. With this plan, countless Americans will save thousands of dollars by negotiating prescription drug prices. For example, limiting cost sharing for insulin products to make sure they're no higher than $35 starting in 2023. Insulin is essential for many people around the country. It will cap it at $35. That is a big deal. And one of the biggest financial burdens on families is housing costs, as we're seeing around the country. Build Back Better will take historic steps to reduce those costs by helping to build, rehabilitate, or preserve 1 million homes. Finally, it also reduces the deficit by $112 billion over 10 years, and several economists and analysts from leading rating agencies like Fitch Ratings and Moody's Analytics have made clear the president's agenda will not contribute to higher prices. Their findings echo 17 Nobel Prize winners in economics who have already stated they believe the Build Back Better Act will, quote, ease longer-term inflationary pressures. Also wanted to provide a brief update on COVID. Obviously, a lot going on in our efforts to take on the pandemic. This morning, as we all saw, the FDA authorized boosters for all American adults 6 months after primary vaccination. The CDC will make the final clinical recommendation we expect this afternoon. This is a very encouraging step to further protect Americans, especially as we enter the winter months. If you're one of the approximately 100 million people in this country already eligible for a booster, our recommendation is that you get the extra protection afforded by a booster as soon as possible. They are widely available across the country and accessible. Thanks to the president's operational planning since August, over 32 million Americans already have their booster, and boosters are available at over 80,000 locations. Second, we're making strong progress protecting kids, with already 10% of 5 to 11-year-olds getting their first shot. Kids that have gotten vaccinated this week will be fully vaccinated by Christmas. And we're continuing to make a big push to reach parents and kids through visits to one of our 30,000 sites for kids by the First Lady, innovative partnerships with DC Comics, and a White House visit from Sierra earlier this week. Third, we've shipped over 250 million vaccines to the world, more than all countries combined, and made an announcement of a historic opportunity for mRNA manufacturers to receive funding and resources from the U.S. government to produce an additional 1 billion doses next year. Last, over 80% of 12 and older Americans have now gotten one shot. This is a huge number. We're continuing to push for more vaccinations. And finally, our view, and recent polling will show you, that vax requirements work. And recent polling indicates 60% of companies are moving forward with a vaccine requirement, which is a big step forward. Just another little update of something happening here today. Today, first week in the job, our infrastructure implementation coordinator, Mitch Landrieu, and the 7 cabinet members and other agencies responsible for implementation, as outlined in the executive order, Departments of Commerce, Energy, Transportation, Labor, Interior, Agriculture, EPA, and OPM, held their first meeting. Also attending was Brian Deese, who's co-chairing the task force, senior staff from across the White House, Gina McCarthy, Susan Rice, Louisa Terrell, Evan Ryan, and Jason Miller. I have certainly invited him to speak to all of you, and he has conveyed to me he's putting his head down and getting to work, as the president has asked him to do, but will be eager to speak to you probably sometime after Thanksgiving. Finally, one note, we gave a lengthy update, don't worry, I will not do that again, on supply chains yesterday. Today, we have new data from Freightos, a leading freight indicator that I just wanted to highlight, that shows shipping prices have declined by almost 25% over the past 2 weeks. Specifically, the price for shipping a container between China and the West Coast, which has declined for 2 straight weeks. And of course, this reduction in prices and shipping costs helps ensure that we are cutting costs for consumers as well. I guess last thing here is the week ahead. We did announce earlier this week that the President and First Lady will travel to Fort Bragg, North Carolina to celebrate Thanksgiving, or Friendsgiving, as some people call it, with service members and military families, thank them for their service as part of the Joining Forces initiative. That is on Monday. On Tuesday, the President, the First Lady, the Vice President, and Second Gentleman will participate in a service project in Washington, D.C., and later that day, the President and First Lady will travel to Nantucket, Massachusetts, where they will remain for the Thanksgiving holiday. Amr, why don't you kick us off?
Now that the bill has passed the House, can you talk a little bit about the game plan in the days and weeks ahead to get it through the Senate? And I guess in the media, does the President have plans talking today or over the weekend to Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema? And just if you could basically let us know what's the plan going forward to get this through to the end zone.
Well, the President is absolutely committed, of course, to getting this through the Senate, signing it into law, and ensuring these impacts, these cost-cutting measures are put in place into law as soon as possible. A number of these steps, including cutting child care costs, could have an impact early next year once we get this through the Senate. We have remained in touch, even as we've been working to get it through the House, at a high senior staff level, senior White House officials, with Senator Sinema, Senator Manchin, other members of the Senate, as we know that is the next important step here, and that will continue. And I'm sure the President will engage when is the right moment to do that with them as well. But I don't have anything to predict for you over the next couple of days.
The President announced today his intention to nominate 2 new members to the Postal Service Board of Governors. Is he looking to remove Postmaster DeJoy?
Well, let me first say we're, of course, deeply troubled, continue to be deeply troubled, as many Americans are, by the earlier reporting on Postmaster General DeJoy's potential financial conflicts of interest, and take serious issues with the job he's doing running the Postal Service. As you know, the President does not have the authority to fire the Postmaster General. It's ultimately up to the Board of Governors by majority. So what was announced today is the President's intention to nominate 2 leaders to the bipartisan United States Postal Service Board of Governors to replace outgoing Governors Ron Bloom and John Barger. Both Derek Kahn and Dan Tangerlini are experienced public servants. And certainly, again, just to reiterate, it's up to the board to make a determination about leadership, but we have continued concerns about Postmaster General's leadership. Go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to ask a few questions about oil. Has the U.S. heard back from China, Japan, South Korea, and India on a coordinated release of emergency stockpiles?
I don't have any update to provide to you today. I would reiterate, for those who weren't following us as closely, we have been in touch with a range of officials and leaders from countries, including China, including other countries around the world that are oil producers, about ensuring there is adequate supply out there, but I don't have any update for today.
Okay. Is Biden considering using authority under a 2015 budget bill to declare an emergency and limit or stop exports of oil for up to a year?
We have a range of options at our disposal, but I don't have any new ones to introduce to all of you today.
Finally, I'm sorry, any message for OPEC ahead of its December 2nd meeting?
Well, our message continues to be privately as well as publicly, of course. It's always good when it's consistent and important, that we want to ensure that the OPEC member countries and OPEC as an organization meets the demand needs that are out there with the adequate supply. That is something we've pressed them on in the past. And I don't have any new conversations privately to convey, but I'll see if there's more we can report to all of you about the meeting. Go ahead.
We know that the President was at Walter Reed earlier today. Can you provide an update on how the physical went and the colonoscopy as well, and what information will you be releasing?
We will have a comprehensive written summary that will be released to all of you later today as soon as it's finalized. I'm not going to get ahead of that. It's, of course, done by medical experts, which is as is appropriate, but we will release that out to all of you later this afternoon. As I noted in a tweet, I hate to reference that, but here we are. Earlier this morning, the President had a conversation with Vice President Harris as well as Chief of Staff Ron Klain at around 11:35 this morning. He was in good spirits. He resumed his duties as president at that point in time. There was also 2 sets of letters that we released publicly. One was at 10:10 a.m., the other was at 11:35 a.m. About the transfer of power under the 25th Amendment and the resumption of power. But that's a reflection of how he is and how he is feeling.
If I could, the vaccine mandate for the civilian federal workforce is set to take effect on Monday. Can you provide us an update on what the implementation is going to be like? And are there any concerns about possibly having staffing shortages because of that?
There are not. Let me give you just an update on this overall, again, for people who haven't been paying us close attention. So November 22nd is the deadline, not 12:01 a.m. that morning, but by the end of the day. But we don't see it as a cliff. We'll be providing more guidance in days to come. We are the largest employer in the country, so it is the U.S. government, that is, of course. So it's going to take some time to collect the data, even as it comes in that day. And once we have gone through the data and have that, we will share that with all of you publicly. But especially as we know, what we have seen is there's a surge in attestations and vaccination as we get closer to the deadline, which is certainly encouraging. But we want to have the final data Monday through the day before we release that publicly. It's going to take a little bit of time to process. But no, we do not anticipate facing any governmental operational disruptions due to this requirement. And in fact, the requirement will avoid disruptions in our view in our labor force because vaccinations help avoid COVID.
And how will the boosters for Moderna and Pfizer, which are pretty close to being approved, how will that factor into these vaccine requirements for federal workers?
Well, we abide by the CDC guidance, which we follow it and will continue to, which is 2 shots of an mRNA vaccine or 1 J&J shot. That has not changed, so we're not going to get ahead of any changes they could make in the future.
Good. Thanks, Jen. A couple of questions on the Build Back Better plan and also how things went last night in the House. Does the White House have any response to Representative McCarthy's 8-hour speech last night that delayed the vote?
Well, Kevin McCarthy said a lot of words, I just want to emphasize that, over the course of 8.5 hours. For those of you who didn't watch all of it, he shared his wish that he could have been in Tiananmen Square. He mused about whether or not Abraham Lincoln was actually assassinated. He shared his hope or his thought or dream, I'm not sure, about picturing America in a swim meet after World War II against every other country. But in 8.5 hours, what he did not talk about was cutting the cost of childcare, cutting the cost of elder care, what we were going to do around the country to bring more women into the workforce, to protect our climate, and that for generations to come. That, in our view, tells you all you need to know about Kevin McCarthy's agenda and what he supports.
Okay. And Senator Manchin, on the topic of Senator Manchin, he says he's still not decided on this bill. Is there anything that the White House is doing to get him to come around on the bill? I know you mentioned this a few moments ago, but is there anything specific that you guys are doing to kind of convince him?
Well, we've been in close touch, as you all know, with Senator Manchin for several months now. That will continue. That can include answering questions he may have, hearing concerns he may have. We are in touch with him, with his staff, through senior White House officials at this point in time, and we believe he's been operating and negotiating in good faith. That has been our experience to date. So now, as everyone knows, the next step is getting it through the Senate. That's what our focus will be on, and I expect we'll continue the discussions and negotiations as they have occurred to date.
Could you tell us when was the last time the president spoke with him?
I don't have any update on that, but I would note that a lot of this work happens, and I think members of Congress and their staff will tell you this, at a staff level. It's answering questions, it's following up. The president has had him here a number of times, as you certainly all know well, but I don't have an update on the last call.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Following up on that, the president has made it clear how important paid leave is to him in this bill. Would the president sign the Build Back Better Act if paid leave got dropped from the bill?
Well, you're right that the president absolutely wants to see even a final package. That's why he proposed it in his initial proposal when he laid out his speech back in May, outlining his Build Back Better agenda. He thinks it's long overdue. He thinks it will help bring more women into the workforce. It will ensure that more women have seats at the table, and it's something he would like to see in the package. He also knows and recognizes that you need the majority of members in the Senate, every single Democrat, to support something to get it across the finish line. And what he looks at, and I'm not going to prejudge what the outcome is here, is the totality of, and this is how the American people look at things, the totality of packages of what is included. This bill, no matter what, everybody supports universal pre-K, cutting the cost of childcare, a historic investment in addressing the climate crisis, making sure there's more housing units available, investing, making sure elder care is less expensive. There are disagreements. Everybody knows that publicly, but he knows he's not going to get everything he wants in this package. If it's not in there, he'll continue to fight for it.
So what is the backup plan if paid leave does get dropped from the Build Back Better bill?
He'll continue to fight to make it law.
And just a logistical question. Will we get all the results of the president's physical this afternoon, or are there some lab results or test results that we won't see until a later date, like next week?
I expect it will be a comprehensive summary of everything today, and don't anticipate at this point that there would be lagging results later.
So first, following up on the physical, if this was a routine physical, why wasn't it on the schedule that you gave us last night? Why the secrecy there?
Well, just to peel the curtain back for the American people on how this worked and how it typically works, if you look back at history here, this morning we notified the pool, the press pool. Many of you are part of that and rotate through that. We called the president of the White House Correspondents Association very early this morning, who was awake. We called the network bureau chief chair that's rotating, as you know, and indicated that the president, not only would the pool be gathering, but the president would be going to get a routine physical. I then sent out a tweet to many, many people out there at around 6:15 a.m., and we have put out many, many updates since then, and we will put out a comprehensive written summary later this afternoon. That's pretty standard for how it's approached, sharing this information. It follows protocols that have been followed in the past, and again, you all will receive a comprehensive summary later this afternoon.
Okay, moving on to the Build Back Better plan. Is the president going to stop saying that the Build Back Better plan does not increase the deficit 1 single cent if we now know that that is not true?
It is true, and I would note the several economists and experts out there. I think you're probably talking about the CBO score,
which Joe Biden himself in 2010 called the gold standard for Democrats and Republicans.
Well, Peter, since we're all here to communicate with the public about accurate information, what I would just note is that one of the components that experts, Democrats and Republicans, including former heads of the CBO, have pointed to is that IRS enforcement is not something that there's a lot of experience in the CBO scoring. They still scored it, but is undervalued by the assessment of many economists and experts, including people who have been critical of us in the past, who estimate, including former Treasury secretaries of both parties, who estimate there will be significant savings, significantly higher than what is estimated currently. So our assessment and the assessment by many economists out there is that there will be savings over 10 years that will actually reduce the deficit.
The CBO's projection is that it's going to, there's going to be at least a $160 billion increase to the deficit over 10 years. That is 16 trillion cents. So the president was not telling the truth.
Well, Peter, just to go back to the content facts here. So the IRS enforcement component, something recommended by former Secretary Hank Paulson, former Secretary Larry Summers, Democrats and Republicans of both parties who feel there could be significant savings over the course of time. I'm just going to note something that Trump-appointed IRS Commissioner Charles Rettig said. The administration estimates $400 billion in additional revenue can be generated over the next decade from enforcement efforts focused on higher-end incomes, shrinking the tax gap. This figure is no surprise. Republican former Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson co-wrote an op-ed with other former Treasury secretaries saying that there could be considerably more revenue than we